The Tyler Henry rumor nobody can actually source. A new clip has been circulating online, and it's the kind of thing that spreads fast because it sounds explosive. Supposedly, celebrity medium Tyler Henry has quietly admitted to encountering the most disturbing client of his career, someone from a session years ago that he allegedly avoided discussing until now. It's a juicy premise. But before jumping to conclusions, it's worth slowing down and separating what's actually documented from what's simply being repeated online, without a real source behind it. Because once you dig into Tyler Henry's actual public record, the picture that emerges is a lot more nuanced than a single viral clip. Who Tyler Henry actually is. For anyone unfamiliar, Tyler Henry built his fame on shows like Hollywood Medium, Life After Death with Tyler Henry, and his newer Netflix series. Henry says he became aware of his psychic abilities as a child, describing an early experience connected to sensing his grandmother's passing before it happened. As a teenager, he began doing informal readings, eventually turning it into paid sessions, and even leading grief support gatherings before finishing high school. His break came early. He landed his first television deal while still a teenager, and from there his client list expanded rapidly to include a long roster of celebrities and public figures. His shows have continued into the streaming era, and by recent reports, his waitlist for private readings has swelled into the hundreds of thousands. Henry has also spoken candidly, in multiple interviews over the years, about the personal cost of his abilities, describing a lonely adolescence, a sense of being different from his classmates, and growing up in a religious environment where reactions to his gift range from supportive to deeply suspicious. In other words, this isn't someone who avoids discussing the harder parts of his story, which raises an obvious question. If he's normally this open, why would one uniquely dramatic claim suddenly be the exception? What the viral claim actually says. The circulating video suggests that back in 2017, Henry sat across from someone he privately considered one of the most unsettling individuals he has ever read for, and that he's kept this experience under wraps for years until supposedly addressing it now. Here's the problem. This claim currently traces back to exactly one source, the video itself. There is no named individual, no corroborating interview, no second outlet reporting the same story independently. That doesn't automatically make it untrue, but it does mean it deserves the same skepticism we'd apply to any single source claim floating around the internet. This is also a familiar pattern in celebrity content. A sensational title attached to a thin premise, repeated across enough channels that it starts to feel like established fact, even though nothing new has actually been confirmed along the way. The tense moments that are actually on record. To be fair, Henry does have a real history of uncomfortable, publicly documented sessions, just not framed the way this new rumor suggests. His reading with Boy George is one well-known example. The musician reportedly went in skeptical, having been convinced to participate by his manager. Tension rose during the session to the point where the manager, watching from another room, stepped in to encourage more openness. By the end, though, Boy George reportedly softened, telling cameras he believed Henry had a genuine gift and would consider a future session. There's also his 2016 reading with news anchor Matt Lauer, which touched on Lauer's late relatives. That reading gained a strange second life the following year, after Lauer's abrupt departure from his network amid a workplace misconduct scandal. Fans later pointed out that nothing in the original reading seemed to anticipate that outcome. A case less about Henry describing someone as unsettling in real time, and more about a session that simply looked different in hindsight once unrelated news broke. Notice the pattern. Real tension, real friction, real documented discomfort. But none of it matches a specific, secretly evil client framing being pushed now. The career that's mostly built on tears, not terror. Zoom out, and the far more common story in Henry's career isn't unsettling at all. It's emotional. Reality star Snooki has returned to him multiple times, describing being moved to tears during a reading connected to a late relative, and later bringing her extended family in for a group session so emotionally intense that Henry himself reportedly needed a moment before it even began. Actress Jodie Sweetin, who has spoken openly about her recovery journey, described a reading in which Henry relayed a message she felt came directly from a supportive late family member, something she called deeply moving given her personal history. Then there's a widely discussed case involving television personality Ricki Lake, who said Henry had described a fire connected to her prior to devastating wildfires in her area. It's worth noting, though, that according to detailed coverage of the actual episode, Henry framed that reference in the past tense during the session and explicitly told Lake he wasn't seeing another fire coming when she asked directly, a detail that complicates the simplified version of the story that spread online afterward. There's also his long relationship with the Kardashian family, beginning with a reading connecting several sisters to their late father, which eventually led to further sessions with other family members. In one, Henry referenced coming emotional distance in a relationship, something fans later connected to a public breakup. Critics have pointed out that this is exactly the kind of vague but resonant statement that could apply to countless relationships, which is precisely the technique skeptics associate with cold reading. The skeptics haven't gone anywhere. No fair discussion of Tyler Henry is complete without acknowledging the substantial skeptical community that has followed his career for years, separate entirely from this new unverified rumor. The most common criticism is that Henry relies on cold reading, broad, emotionally resonant statements that most people can map onto their own lives. Others have gone further, suggesting that because his client are almost always public figures, background research could theoretically be done in advance, sometimes referred to as hot reading. Henry's production team has pushed back directly on this, stating that he isn't told who will be reading beforehand and that access to guest identities is deliberately restricted on set. Organized skeptical commentary exists too. A published critique from a scientific skepticism advocate examined a reading Henry gave actor Alan Thicke, arguing that references to heart-related health risks weren't a meaningful prediction, given that heart disease remains statistically one of the most common causes of death among men, meaning the odds were already favorable regardless of any psychic insight. Other opinion pieces from skeptic-focused publications have criticized his newer Netflix format specifically, arguing that meeting guests with no visible preparation doesn't actually prove much either way. Even Henry himself doesn't claim perfection. In interviews, he's compared his accuracy to that of an athlete, good, but not flawless, estimating that he's right roughly 80% of the time. He's also said he welcomes genuine skepticism, distinguishing it from outright dismissal, and has framed public unease about his work as a natural response to something unfamiliar, a track record that's genuinely mixed. If you actually look at specific cases, Henry's history includes both striking hits and notable misses, which is worth remembering before treating any new unverified claim as automatically credible or automatically fake. On the hit side, there's a reading with skateboarder Rob Dyrdek, where Henry predicted he'd become a father figure to a boy despite the family expecting a girl, a prediction that reportedly came true. There's also a session with comedian Margaret Cho, where Henry apparently predicted a book release with unusual specificity, including a delay that Cho later confirmed matched reality. On the miss or at least questionable side, there's his reading involving the late rapper Notorious B.I.G., where Henry suggested the artist suspected someone wanted him dead, a detail critics noted had already been widely discussed for years and added little new insight into a long unsolved case. Henry himself has acknowledged this mixed record publicly, comparing occasional inaccurate readings to an athlete having an off day, without treating it as proof his overall ability is fake. He's also spoken about discretion, explaining that when reading celebrities, he consciously avoids revealing information they may not want made public. That's a real, on-record reason he might stay vague about specific sessions, though it obviously doesn't confirm anything about this particular unverified rumor either. So where does that leave us? Here's the honest summary. Tyler Henry has a long, well-documented career filled with real tension, real controversy, real skepticism, and a genuinely mixed accuracy record. What he does not have, at least right now, is any verified, independently confirmed account of a uniquely evil 2017 client. That story currently exists in exactly one place. A single video with no name attached, no second source, and no supporting statement from Henry himself anywhere on record. That doesn't mean it's impossible. It means it's unconfirmed. And given how much real source drama already exists in Henry's career, without needing embellishment, it's fair to treat this specific claim with caution until something more solid actually surfaces. What do you think? Is there something real buried underneath the story? Or is this just another internet rumor moving faster than the facts can keep up?